Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. How do poverty, illiteracy, and malnutrition adversely affect billions of people around the world? What is the United Nations, especially through the Millennium Development Goal campaign, doing to provide assistance to many of these people? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other hot-button issues. Welcome back to our program. Today we're focusing attention on issues that are being confronted by literally billions of people around the world. Poverty, illiteracy, malnutrition, the lack of empowerment for women, and many others. And we're looking at what the United Nations Millennium Development Goal campaign is doing to provide assistance. My guest today is someone who's very familiar with this and very knowledgeable of the program. Dr. Asha-Rose Migiro, a Tanzanian national, is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. She is the third person and the first African to hold this position. Dr. Migiro, who is also a lawyer, formerly served as Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation from 2006 to 2007 in Tanzania. Deputy Secretary General Migiro, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I appreciate you being with me. We're going to get into the Millennium Development Goals in just a moment, but let's talk a little bit about your role as Deputy Secretary General. We have the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. You're the Deputy Secretary General. What exactly are your functions? What do you do?
Yeah, well, first of all, I should say it's a great privilege for me to work for the United Nations and to serve under Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. As the name of the position goes, I deputize Secretary General Ban. I represent him and I basically support him in all aspects of his work. But I also have specific areas that I deal with from a day-to-day perspective. And these are management of the organization. I do coordination of the management. I deal with development. And I also do oversight issues. And for all this time that I have held this position, I have been working with the senior advisors and senior managers to make sure that our work is coherent, is coordinated so as to maximize impact on the people we serve. But as regards development, one particular focus that I have made is to ensure that the world remains committed to what you have mentioned as the Millennium Development Goals.
That's a very good segue into it. We've heard about the Millennium Development Goals, but we don't read as much about them as we probably should. What are the Millennium Development Goals? How did they get started and what do they do?
That's a very good question because at the United Nations, we have this tendency of using phrases and words that may not be easily understood by the people we work with. The Millennium Development Goals are a set of time-bound and quantified targets that relate to various development challenges. They were devised here at the United Nations in 2000 by world leaders. They're a commitment, a promise to the poorest and the most needy of the world that we shall all work together to ensure they get out of these issues. They relate to poverty, to hunger. The commitment is to reduce poverty by half at least by 2015. They're about universal education, access to water, women's empowerment. So it's about development challenges by and large. And it is issues that people are dealing with. When we say MDGs or Millennium Development Goals, people get questions, but they know these issues. If they're not experiencing them, they know countries and people who go through them.
And these are issues that exist in every country. Developing countries have illiteracy challenges, they have poverty challenges, they have malnutrition, but even developed countries too. You have pockets of poverty, you have pockets of malnutrition.
That's
so
right.
this is not something that's alien to all countries, and
Yeah.
everyone is certainly confronting this. Now, these are very important Millennium Development Goals. You mentioned they're quantifiable. We're able to actually see how well we're progressing. It started in 2000, and it's over a 15-year period to 2015, as I recall. So we're about 2/3 of the way through, and just a little over 2/3 of the way. And I'm sure that many of our viewers would probably like more information on it. Now, they can go to un.org to get information, or they can go to endpoverty2015.org and find out more information about these very important goals. Let's talk a little bit about the goals. As you look at them, as you talk about reducing, I think, abject poverty by 50% by 2015, you're looking at improving maternal health care programs. Who are some of your key partners in carrying out these goals? The UN can provide the tent to bring all of the players together, but the UN can do so much, and of course you need a lot of other help to do this. Who are your key partners?
Virtually everybody is our key partner, because as you rightly said, these are issues that concern many parts of the world, and therefore we have member states, that is countries who are members of the United Nations, international organizations, civil society, non-governmental organizations, faith-based leaders and organizations. All these are our key partners, and most of all citizens of the world, because these development objectives are about people, about them. So virtually everybody is our key partner, and we believe each and every person has a role to play.
And do you find that the enthusiasm has been great by a wide range of organizations, faith-based groups, service clubs, governments across the board, as far as mobilizing, coming together to focus attention on these goals?
Very much so. As they were devised in the year 2000, they started with national governments. It was leaders meeting here at the United Nations through their governments. But in the course of time, they have been of interest everywhere, because these are shared values. It could be somebody from government, it could be leaders, but it is also ordinary citizens. It's non-governmental organizations. So the enthusiasm has been growing over time. And this was very evident recently when the Secretary General convened the summit, world leaders came here to discuss, to take stock where we are. Because as you rightly say, we have target date 2015, and now we have passed even 10 years, or we're getting close to 2015. So where are we? Leaders met here, but it is not only government leaders. Corporations came here to New York, business leaders, non-governmental organizations, they all converged on New York to take stock and to see what they can do to scale up implementation and resource mobilization for these development targets. So the enthusiasm is there, the support is there.
And you mentioned businesses. They have a critical role to play, be it in a developed country or a developing country, because they're the ones who hire people, they're the ones who pay salaries to a large degree, and they can certainly be very beneficial as far as providing employment opportunities and helping to bring down that abject poverty and to put people to work. So it's very important. Well, let's talk a little bit about goal number one. Now, there are over 2 billion people out of about 6.8 billion people on the planet who are living in abject poverty. We see that they are living basically on less than $1 a day, which is a very small amount of money to try to get by. Let's talk a little bit about poverty, the goal number one, to reduce abject poverty by 50%. How are we doing in this particular area? Are we making progress as far as helping to bring down that number? Are we kind of on track to achieve that goal by 2015?
Yes, we're making progress. We're making progress. Between 2000, when the goals were promulgated, and 2005 already, we saw a significant reduction of people who lived under $1 a day. This is significant. But we have also seen between 1990 and again 2005, we have seen poverty levels coming down from 46% to 27%. it is significant. And looking at individual countries, for instance, in my own continent, Malawi there has been able to make a lot of progress in the area of agriculture. Within less than 10 years, that country has been able to move from one of famine to a country now exporting food. So this has impact on poverty as well as reduction of hunger. Similar efforts have been in countries like Vietnam, for instance, where they have invested a lot in agricultural research and development. This has been able to cut down food insecurity levels by more than half. So you can see poverty is going down, hunger is going down, because poverty and hunger do go together. And in many other countries, there have been similar efforts, although challenges are there. And the threat has been in recent years when we had the economic downturn, we had food and energy crisis, but by and large, we are on track. We just need to scale up, to replicate the good interventions to make sure that we remain on track.
Mm-hmm. And it's encouraging to hear that we're doing well, especially in the poverty area, because of course we had the financial collapse that started about a little over 2 years ago, 3 years ago in the United States and spread around the world. Mm-hmm. And of course that really affected the incomes of a lot of people and the flow of wealth around the world. So it's very promising to hear that there is progress mm-hmm. being made, especially in reducing abject poverty. That's right. I'm delighted to hear that. Let's talk about the commitments. Now in September of 2010, there was a major Millennium Development Goal Review Summit at the United Nations. It was in September, I guess, September 20th through 22nd. Yeah. And tell us a little bit about that. What were the commitments that were made, or tell us about the conference. Why did they get together and what came out of it?
Yeah, it was important to have this summit because we have gone now 10 years into the time that was set where we wanted to see progress in the various areas. And leaders met here in New York. It was a successful meeting, a huge success. We had more than 140 leaders converging, that is government leaders. But we had from other international organizations, from international business, they're all here. What came out very clearly there is that if we continue to have good policies, if we continue to have focused interventions, it is possible to reach the goals by 2015. That is a clear message. So there is success there. But we also had an opportunity to look at the different goals to see which one will be pivotal for the implementation of others. One of them is the area of maternal health. So there was focus on that. There was also focus on HIV, AIDS, reduction of malaria and tuberculosis, and governments committed. International business committed, civil society committed to scaling up both in terms of policies and plans and also resources. So it was a huge success. And we saw also financial commitments. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon launched a global strategy on maternal and children's health. There was a $40 billion commitment, and this is huge. We have the European Union. They committed $1 billion for countries that are, most needy. And we have China, for instance, which pledged to allow produce from LDCs on zero tariff. So all these are outcomes of this meeting. You see concrete action coming there. It's not only commitment, but also action. And this means that we will continue to maintain focus on these development goals.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, and the main purpose of Global Connections is to focus attention on international issues that impact people from Frankfort, Kentucky to Frankfurt, Germany, and from Lima, Ohio to Lima, Peru. Welcome back to our program. Today we're looking at the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, and my guest is someone who's very knowledgeable of these goals, and she's been working on this project for several years now. Dr. Asha-Rose Migiro, a Tanzanian national, is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. She is the first African and the third person to hold this position. Dr. Migiro, who is also a lawyer, formerly served as Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Tanzania. Secretary General Migiro, we're talking about the Millennium Development Goals, and we started off with poverty, and there's good news on that front, that poverty reduction is coming down. There has been progress made. Let's talk in general. There are 8 goals altogether. You've mentioned a couple of them, with maternal health care, that type of thing, to reversing the AIDS epidemic. It's difficult to look at the whole world with over 192 countries of the United Nations and say, well, we're on track, but are we pretty much moving forward on a lot of these issues? And do we seem, if maybe there's some we're not doing quite as well on, we have that commitment from governments, businesses, non-governmental organizations to maybe put forth a little more effort for the last 5 years? Is that where we are at this point? We are moving forward in this area.
Yes.
Great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
That is very good.
yeah,
Yes. But it is so important that the world focus on these Millennium Development Goals. It is extremely important because they do affect literally billions of people around the world. Let's talk about women in their empowerment. In the developed countries, women are discriminated against at times. They hit a glass ceiling. They can't move up in businesses or corporations or what have you. But let's talk about empowering women. What do we mean by empowerment of women?
Well, that's quite interesting too. Empowerment of women is about focusing our attention on women. That is one aspect, but not only on women, but those interventions in society in terms of resources, in terms of policies, so that women can play their rightful role in contributing to the development of their communities, of their societies, of their countries. In the context of the Millennium Development Goals, these targets, these development objectives that we're talking about, empowerment means giving women access to education, ensuring that women have equality of opportunity, equality of work, they have decent work. It's about ensuring that women have access to health services. It is not only women and children, because in most cases you find women and children coming together. In many parts of the world where you have a woman in a bad position, the child is bound to be there. So having equal access, having opportunities, making sure that they're equipped with the tools to fight poverty, to contribute to national development. It's also about full participation in public life, in decision-making processes where decisions are made without them, for them. Now this is about with them, for them, and for community. So it's really giving them power to live in dignity, to be full citizens of their countries and of their communities.
Now, a few years ago, there were some statistics. These may be a little bit dated, but the statistics pertain primarily to the developing countries, but they still could apply to some developed countries. But they indicated the phenomenal role that women play in each society. And as I recall, it was something like 1 of every 3 families in the developing countries is headed by a female. The women do 75% of the work, as opposed to the men. They own 1/100th of the property, and they earn 1/10 of the salary that men earn. Now, this is a tremendous gap as far as the actual involvement of women, what they're doing to make their society, to improve their society. What can be done to help these women as far as perhaps micro loans or microfinancing, or perhaps literacy programs or things like that? Are these programs underway right now to help women to start their own businesses?
This is absolutely important, because we have to link that with empowerment, one part of it, but even reaching the targets of the goals that we are talking about, reducing hunger, reducing poverty, This means them having the education, having the tools, being employed on equal terms. We're talking about equity and equality. It is only when we have that that women will access, all the avenues which will lift them out of poverty. We're talking about maternal health, combating HIV, AIDS, and malaria. All these will make them healthy and therefore be able to tend for themselves. But you have talked of training and microfinance. In fact, in some quarters, they're not talking of microfinance now, they want big finance, because we have talked about microfinance for a long time. And in some parts of the world, you find that women are just in small businesses that don't take them far in terms of economic empowerment and economic prosperity. So really having adequate credit for them to access all sectors. It could be agriculture, it could be industry, it could be manufacturing, but they should have the tools. But education is key, literacy is key, finance is key in this regard.
So they're ready to move from microfinancing to macrofinancing.
Macrofinancing.
That is very positive.
Yes.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
You mentioned infant mortality and maternal health. These are so important, and we know we can make tremendous strides in these areas. We can improve these. How is our progress in this area as far as the maternal health care and reducing the infant mortality rates? Are we moving forward in this area, or is there more that we need to do?
Maternal health is an area which lags behind. Out of the goals that we have talked about, maternal mortality, maternal health, this is where we really are behind. There's so many challenges in most parts of the world, especially in the developing countries. The levels are very, very high. So we're not making good progress there. But what is important is that we know what needs to be done and we know what it takes. So we need the political will and we need to take actual steps, because women die out of very simple causes. Obstructed labor, for instance, this is something that can be dealt with. Overbleeding after delivery, this can be stopped. Emergency care, so prenatal, during birth, after delivery, all these are complications that can be arrested if you have the right tools, if you have the right means. And it doesn't take much. We have seen countries where just having proper beds, for instance, having qualified doctors, qualified attendants, nurses, that can do the trick. So we need to do that. But do we give adequate resources? Is this a priority? In many countries, that is not a priority. Women's issues are not a priority. And that is why we find that in the area of maternal mortality, maternal health, is also where we do not have adequate resources being directed there. So what we need to do to give this priority, not to take women's issues, women's health as something coming last after all other issues have been paid for.
Well, you're absolutely right. We're 2/3 of the way to the goal at 2015, but now is the time to step back, look at what's been done, and see what more needs to be done. And as you mentioned, so much can be done very inexpensively. It's not a matter of a multi-million-dollar hospital or something like that, but something in providing clean beds or whatever, or just a basic hospital or basic services, health services.
That's
so
correct.
it's extremely, extremely important.
Absolutely.
And of course, we hope that our viewers will want to learn more about these Millennium Development Goals. They can go to UN.org. They can Google Millennium Development Goals. There are many ways to learn more about them. And in all probability, regardless of if our viewers go to a particular church or if they're in a certain civic club or a service club such as Kiwanis or Rotary or Lions or whatever it might be, in all probability, those groups are working to help achieve the United Nations Millennium Development Goals.
Absolutely,
So
in whatever they do.
That's right. There's a role for everybody to play. Well, we could talk about these. They're very important goals, and we could talk about them for many, many hours. But let's move off to another topic. Just recently, the United Nations developed the United Nations Women's Agency. What was the concept behind bringing together, I think, four or five entities with the UN, making one sort of a super agency, if you will? What was the concept behind it, and what will it do?
Yes, this is the office that is called United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment. In short, we call it UN Women.
UN
a very
Women.
good acronym indeed. so that we continue to focus on women as we look at gender equality. The idea here was to bring our work together. As you say, we had 4 distinct entities working in the area of gender equality and women's empowerment. But we said all these are inadequately resourced. We do not make much impact. We are not strong enough to support countries in a coherent and effective manner. So the idea was to bring this together. We have been able to do that with the support of the member states of the United Nations. So now we have one powerful entity called UN Women. It is intended to be the voice of women, the voice of world's women, but also a strong tool, a strong organization for bringing about gender equality. So what it will do, it will coordinate. First and foremost, it will coordinate the work of the United Nations so that we maximize the resources and the efforts that we have to support countries and communities. But it will also ensure accountability within the United Nations, because it is not only the Secretariat, but we have funds, agencies and programs. They're also doing remarkable job in the area of gender equality and women's empowerment. So UN Women will bring accountability so that we know we're going the same vision, we're going the same way, and we are allocating adequate resources. But it will also support member states, because member states are our largest clients with the communities there. They would come to UN Women to ask for advice. It could be technical advice, it could be resource. At their request, the UN Women will be able to support their work. It will be a women's voice, a world women's voice, but a voice for humanity and dignity.
And women do need a voice. They certainly do.
Sure.
Most assuredly.
Yeah.
Well, as you look over the horizon, what do you see as the major challenge as we move forward in the last 5 years? You mentioned the political will, the financial infusion, which a lot of these problems can be cured or at least reduced with financial investment. But do you see any other major challenges that we have as we move towards the last 5 years of the Millennium Development Goal campaign?
Yes, major challenges are emerging issues. We talked about the economic downturn. This is something that came in and sort of pulled back the gains that we got before then. We're talking about climate change and natural disasters. In some countries where they had made progress in the area of infrastructure, including service institutions, they suffered natural disaster. So this is a challenge. But I should say that these challenges also provide a huge opportunity, especially because we have seen that in the last 10 years, we have been able to take some steps. Countries have pulled out of poverty millions of people. We have seen child enrollment, school enrollment increasing. We have seen reduction in child mortality. So we know what works. We have seen countries providing subsidy to its farmers, therefore increasing food security. So we know what needs to be done. We know what it takes to do it. Let us now pull all these efforts together. Let us direct resources and always bear in mind that the Millennium Development Goals are not an end in themselves, but they create a very strong platform for sustainable development. And when we have this, we have global economy booming, bringing security, bringing dignity, and sharing this burden of ensuring that every human being has a decent life.
Dr. Asha-Rose Migiro, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us on today's Global Connections program.